I'm getting ready to change the oil in my engine. It's a Perkins 4.108M marine diesel engine. It's original engine in this boat. This boat was built in 1975. It's a Formosa 41. And the previous owner removed this engine and took it to his house and rebuilt it in his living room and put it back in. And he's taken it out several times after he rebuilt it, so I know it runs good. And I bought this boat 8 years ago, and I've been doing a very massive fiberglass reconstruction of the cabin. Basically just fiberglassing over the cabin top of the boat because I had rainwater leaks, and it was a very big project. It took me like 4 years to get it done. And so I pretty much have that finished, and so now I need to go ahead and start this engine. I haven't run it in a very long time. It's been like 5 years because of what was going on with the fiberglass, and I had so much stuff piled in this boat for the fiberglass construction project that I couldn't get to the water valve to turn the cooling on to cool the engine using seawater. It was just too hard to get to, and I was so busy with the other projects I have going on. The marina I'm in is closing. I only have 5 more months and I have to get out of here, so I got to get this going. So I'm going to go ahead and change the oil first. I checked the fuel in the fuel tank. It was a brand new fuel tank, and I run the engine a few times when I bought the boat, so I checked the fuel. The fuel filters had been replaced, the previous owner, before I bought it, and he recommends that I don't go ahead and replace the filters. I have the filters here to replace them, but he was saying there's really probably no need, so I'm going to risk it and try starting the engine without replacing the fuel filters. I did inspect the fuel and it looks really good. I didn't see any water in the tank at all, which was surprising, and I pulled a sample out all the way from the bottom of the tank, no water. I put an endoscope down in the tank. I can't see any signs of any bacteria or anything growing in there. I have a Raycor filter on here plus a secondary filter, so I just didn't want to have to bleed the air out of the fuel lines and everything to get it started if I change the filters. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and risk it trying it. I'm pretty confident it should be okay. So now I'm just going to go ahead and pump the oil out. This has a hand pump built onto the engine to pump the oil out because boat engines sit down low inside the boat, and it's like pretty impossible just to open a drain plug and let gravity drain it out. So it has a pump, and I went ahead and replaced this tube. I put a tube on here the last time I changed the oil, and again it was like 5 years ago, and the tube that I had on here was kinked, and it had been kinked for 5 years, and so I just went ahead and replaced it, and I got it going into this jug here that I'm gonna go ahead and pump the oil into here, and then probably have to use a second jug because it's probably about, I think it's 4 quart capacity, but I think it's probably a little bit more than that. There's an oil filter on here, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pump the oil out. So I'm going to show you where the hand pump is. Okay, down in there, I don't know if you can see it, but right here is the hand pump, and that's the handle for it. And here's the engine, Perkins. And so one trick that you want to do when you're changing oil on an engine and using a pump like this is the first thing you want to do is open up the filler cap and take it off, because I think I did this last time and didn't take it off, and it was very difficult to pump the oil out because it needs to have air come in from the top of the engine so it'll flow back out when you pump it out. So I'm going to take this off Okay, now, if I recall, I think I have to twist this handle to loosen it. Of course, there's always wires and stuff in the way. So yeah, I twist it to loosen this. There it goes. I see it. It's on its way. Here it goes. All right, there you go. Nice dirty oil. Even though I ran this engine only about 45 minutes, I changed the oil last time. I didn't run the engine before I changed it because I wanted to put new oil in. I wasn't sure how old the oil was. And so there was still a lot of icky stuff in the bottom of the engine. Plus diesels, the oil gets really dirty. It's typical. So at any rate, that's all there is to it. This is a lot easier than last time since I took that filler cap off. The air can go down inside. So just take my time pumping it out. You probably want to get containers that have a screw-on lid and not just the kind that pushes on. In case you knock this over, you do not want this oil going anywhere, and especially inside the boat. Nothing's easy on a boat. It's always, I don't care what it is. Cooking food ain't easy. Cleaning the boat inside and out's not easy. Vacuuming's not easy. Dusting's not easy. You know, it's just, most boats aren't really that big a space inside. You think keeping them clean would be real easy, and it is not. It is very difficult. Dusting is difficult. Brushing your teeth is difficult. Everything is not easy. My other boat had a pump like this, and it had a stainless steel mesh tubing that hooked to the engine, and it stayed hooked to the engine. This pump stays hooked to the engine too. And but the pump, you could lift it out and hold it in your hand, and it just seemed so much easier than this one. Now, my oil filter is upside down. It's a twist-on type, and it spins on. And if I recall, it's on the other side of the engine. It's upside down. And so what I did last time, and I just lucked out. I went ahead and pumped the oil out, and then wow, this is weird. It's almost like it's empty. Anyway, I pumped the oil out, and then I had to go somewhere. I can't remember where, but I went somewhere. And then what I did was, I was gone for a while. When I came back, a few hours or whatever, I came back, I went ahead and took the oil filter off. And because it's upside down, when you unscrew it, I was assuming a bunch of oil is going to come out, gushing out of it and out of the engine, or out of the filter itself. I think the filter screws on like this, and then it comes off like that. Well, because I went and was gone for a couple hours or however long, I don't remember exactly how long, it probably wasn't even an hour. When I came back, I took the filter off, oil filter off. It had drained all the way back down in the engine, so I didn't spill hardly anything out. I'll take the dipstick and check the oil level before I start it up, make sure I got enough oil enough in the oil filter, and then I'll run it for a little bit. That'll push oil into the oil filter, and because it'll take a little bit, and I'll just have to keep checking it and run the engine a while. So it's looking to me like that was all there is. I'm really hoping this engine will start. It ran really good when I first bought this boat. When I started the engine, the first time I started it, I didn't even use the glow plugs. I just tried starting it cold, and it was in the fall, I think, so the weather was pretty warm. And it just fired right up. It was great. Didn't smoke at all. And I think the second time I started it, I went ahead and just used the glow plugs just to make sure everything was working. And again, it fired right up. I mean, it just started right up and just purred like a kitten. These old Perkins marine diesel engines are pretty good. And so I'm gonna, it only has 500 hours on it, and I'll run it and try to take good care of it. I won't keep it as long as I can, but when, oh, here comes some more oil. I may need to get another container. It's not much though, it's just a little bit. When this engine finally dies, my dream is to go electric and have an electric motor in here. But I got a lithium battery bank that I built, and everything's 12 volts. You know, I debated on going 48 volts or 24 volts or whatever, but when you're going to use an electric engine, you need preferably 48 volt system. I think they can run like on 32 volts, maybe 24, but I've never seen any of them running on 12 volts. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but I wouldn't think so. It's more efficient to use 48 volts, and so I'll either have to totally rewire my electrical system to 48 volts, or have two systems. I'll probably have, what I'll do is I'll just have one 12 volt system and build a separate 48 volt system for the electric motor. Okay, I think that's good. I don't think I'm going to pump it just a couple more times to see if I get anything else. Oh, nah, that's it. Okay, it's good. So yeah, that's it. One container, that's good too. So I'm just going to let this sit for a second and let this tube clear out. And that's it. And then all I do is put this cap back on, the filler cap back on the engine. Don't want to lose that and don't want to drop it down in here. I kept the tube up high in this bottle. This little handle on this bottle helped hold the tube up high. I didn't want to put it way down in the bottom because now it'd have oil, dirty oil all over the outside of the tube, and there's actually doesn't look like there's any oil at all on the outside of the tube, so that worked out really good. So I'm going to very carefully and quickly put this cap on so I don't knock this thing over and make a mess. It's good to keep everything as clean as possible. Your bilge, your engine area. By law, you have to have a drip pan under your engine, which is a good thing. You don't want it to go down any oil to get down in the bilge. And that just makes it easier to clean if you do have any spills or leaks. And engines, eventually they'll leak. There's going to be leaks somewhere. Yeah, that's it. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to let this sit for a while, and then I'm going to change the oil filter. And then after I change the oil filter, I can go ahead and put the new oil back in the engine right here in this filler. The reason oil gets so dark and black in diesel engines is because the engine will carbon up. If you don't run a diesel engine under load, it's really bad for it. So if you ever do run your diesel engine, and you're just in your slip in the marina, kick that sucker into gear. Make sure there's no lines or anybody swimming around the prop. But yeah, kick it into gear and run the prop while you're running the engine to put a load on the engine, because it's not good to run a diesel engine at all with no load on it. It's very bad for them. And it's good to keep you clean the oil off your engine as much as possible, because even if you have a little sheen of oil left on the engine, then dirt and grime sticks to it and it gets dirty, and so the cleaner the better. After I let it set a little while, I'll come back and change the oil filter. Okay, here's the front of the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the oil filter now. My paper towel's ready in case some oil spills out. So at any rate, I don't know if you can see it, but it's it's back behind these hoses here. It's this white thing here, and so it's I need to remove it, and it's on tight. When I put it on, I didn't put it on real tight, because these things are really hard if you ever changed oil filters on a car or whatever. Sometimes they're really hard to get off. Well, I had this under the floorboards from the previous owner, and unfortunately, this is a wrench to remove a filter wrench to remove the filter. Unfortunately, this pipe right here is in the way, and it won't fit over the top and down over the filters. No way. So I remember it seemed to me like he had a different one, and he did, and I found it in the drawer in the galley. And it's this. So this is the filter wrench I'm going to use, and I'm sure this is the one I used last time. to remove this filter. So at any rate, it just kind of swivels here. And so I'm going to need to just put it on here and see if I can. Look at that, nice and clean. So yeah, it's good to let it set, and that way the oil will drain out of it. So when you go to take it off, you don't end up with a big mess. The previous owner used to say it was really messy. Well, that's because he didn't let it set. I don't think he let it set, because he did say it would make a mess, but not one drop of oil came out. So that's great. So this is a Napa 1806 filter that I use. It's the one recommended by the, or equivalent, by the Perkins manufacturer. And I didn't think I said this is a 50 horsepower 4-cylinder engine. So it's the 4.108 M Perkins marine diesel. And here's my Raycor filter here, right here. And this is not in a good place. I can barely see the bowl. There's a transparent bowl on the bottom of this filter, so you can see if there's any water in your fuel. And usually there is, because you'll get condensation in your fuel tank. You want to keep your fuel tanks topped off. That keeps the condensation to a minimum. And so at any rate, I got a replacement filter here somewhere. I think I can reach right up here and grab it. There it is. And it's the same one. So here you go. So now I'm going to go ahead and put on the new one. And so what I got to do is just take it out of the plastic package it's in. I'm going to get rid of this thing so I don't spill it. So whenever you replace your filters, fuel filters or oil filter, you want to make sure you get the right ones back on. Sometimes some of these engines are old, and the manual might recommend something that's not available anymore. So you'll have to check and see if you can find a replacement that is suitable. And this is just real convenient. Napa carries these, so it works out good. So whenever you change the oil filter, and I'm sure most of you realize this who's ever done a change before, this is the oil that I'm going to put in the engine, and this is actually recommended by Perkins. So they recommend Castrol 10W30. So that's what I'm going to use. The previous owner, he was using some Chevron oil, and I can't remember the number of it, and it was like impossible to find. And I think the manual also recommended that Chevron oil. But at any rate, you really want to get something that's available, readily available. And so this stuff I'm sure you can get pretty much all around the world. So just stick to that. It's, I wanted to put the same oil he had in there, and it's like, I couldn't find it anywhere. I mean, I probably could have special ordered it. So what you want to do is just take a little of this oil here for now, and put a little bit on your finger. Got my paper towels here, so I'll put a little bit on my finger here. Just a little tiny bit. And that's all I need. Don't knock that over whenever I do. And you want to put some oil on this seal. And the reason for that is because when you spin it on, you don't want this seal to get damaged. So this will help it spin easy. I'm only going to tighten it by hand. I'm not going to use a wrench on it. There's a lot of vibration with diesel engines, and the last thing you want is your fuel filter to spin loose and your oil start leaking out, and your engine to get totally damaged. So yeah, anyway, that's it for that. And next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and start putting oil in it. And one thing nice about this engine compartment, I don't think I need a funnel. Like I said, I think I let this thing sit for about 5 or 6 years without running it, which is not good at all. You should not do that. I do not recommend letting a diesel engine sit. You should run it, if you run it every couple of weeks even, or once a week would be good. But if you let it set, it's not good. Now, I was hoping to put a wrench on this flywheel and turn it by hand. This will turn the engine, the pistons, the valves, everything will move. I got a great big pipe wrench, but I don't know if I can get it in there, but I don't have a wrench big enough to fit that thing. My other engine, I had a Lehman 60 horsepower on my other boat, and I could put a socket on there, so the bolt wasn't that big, but this thing's honking big. And I don't have a wrench here. I used to work on a research farm. We had great big huge wrenches for all our tractors. Unfortunately, I don't work there anymore. Okay, I got my crescent wrench, and I can tell right now it is not even close to being big enough. And I got it wide open. It's no ways it's gonna fit on there. Nope. So, at any rate, I wanted to, after I put the oil in here, I wanted to crank this by hand real slow and get the pistons moving, get the valves moving. The oil pump will pump oil up into the top of the engine. Of course, there'll be plenty of oil on the top of the engine because you pour it in at the top of the engine. But at any rate, now I just need to find my dipstick here where it's at. But here's 4 quarts. I got 4 quarts of oil here. Now, this is what I like about this engine compared to my other one. I think I can just pour these bottles straight in without a funnel. And so let's give it a try. Let's open this up. Make sure I don't drop this down in the engine area. Get it out of the way. And then we'll just start putting in the oil. And oh yeah, this is nice. Look at that. No funnel. Goes right in. I'm gonna scrunch down under my table here. I could take this table out of here and have a lot more room to work down here. So actually this engine's not too bad. I can pretty much get to everything. There's the door in the front, and there's 2 doors on the side, and then there's a seat back there in the galley, the dinette area that opens up, and I can get to the transmission back there in the back end of the engine. So everything's accessible. I can pretty much get to everything pretty easily. It's not as nice as a real engine room, but this boat's a pretty big boat, but it's not big enough for an engine room. And when I put an electric motor in here and take this diesel out one day, I won't need a lot of room anyway. This is the alternator here, and this is the water pump here for the cooling. I haven't checked the impeller on that. I'm gonna start the engine. I'll make sure water's coming out of the exhaust like it's supposed to. It's a wet exhaust, so it runs seawater through a heat exchanger on here. And then this is the cooling tank here. So this is just like your radiator in your car, except it doesn't have the fins and the air. It's not air cooled, it's water cooled. So it goes through a tube. It runs across a big diameter tube, runs across the back of the engine, and it's got a bunch of small tubes inside. Okay, there's 3 quarts, 1 more quart, and we'll check the dipstick. And it'll probably show that it's a little high because there's not any oil in the oil filter yet. That'll happen when I run the engine, and the oil pump will pump the oil all through the engine, and it'll go into the oil filter. So there's the last quart. This is really easy. I'm almost loving this because my other engine was actually pretty easy to get to too. The whole engine box came apart, but if I recall, it seemed to me like putting oil in my other engine was kind of a pain. And it's best to have your boat set up to where maintenance, especially on your engine, is easy. If you have a boat that it is really difficult to get to, I've seen boats where the only thing you could get to was the dipstick, and it was in a kitchen cabinet. You had to take this little tiny hatch off and put 2 fingers down in, and you could real carefully pull the dipstick out, and that was about all you can get to. I mean, you'd have to tear the galley cabinets out of the boat to get to the engine to do maintenance on it, and it was a Cal 34 sailboat. I think it was a Cal 34, and you know, I don't know if all of them are like that, but I would not like that. His wiring, the guy's wiring too. I looked under the cockpit, and he didn't wire it, but he bought the boat, and I don't know who wired it. I don't know if it came from the manufacturer, but they had bare wire. I mean, just it's insulated wire, but they had them literally stapled with metal staples, and it looked like a spider web. There was wires running in every direction. You do not want to wire a boat like that. That is really bad. Okay, I got 4 quarts in, and I'm going to put the filler cap back on, and then we're going to look at the dipstick, and I think that'll be it for today. And maybe tomorrow, maybe I'll try starting her.